Was it a moment of peace and quiet? Or was it in the midst of chaos and confusion? Was the moment you're remembering now the result of intention and forethought? Or was it an accident in spite of what was really happening? Was it planned or spontaneous? Was it serendipitous or calculated? Where were you when it happened? When John heard in prison what the Messiah was doing. You know, I've never been to prison. Or I should say I've never been to prison other than to visit. You empty your pockets, go through a metal detector. A guard might do a further search or at least ask questions about whether you're carrying anything and what that is. There's that steel gate that opens. You step through. There's another gate in front of you, and you hear the clang of the gate behind you close and securely lock. You can see the guard who's flipping the switch, and once that other one is closed, the next one opens. You step through, you can hear it behind you slide closed and locked, and you know, by golly, I'm inside. And unless somebody outside decides to let me leave, this is where I'm at. It's an amazing feeling to be inside a prison or even just a county jail. You know you don't want to be there. The people responsible for that place really don't want the risk that visitors bring to the inside, so they don't want you there. Whoever it is that you might be visiting, they certainly don't want to be there. They're probably wondering why you're really there. Back in New York, where I pastored, I had a member of my church who was in the county jail for nearly a year before he was transferred to the state facility. His crime was that he and some others had burned a couple of other churches in our community. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I caught him inside my church, our church, when no one else should have been there. I didn't realize how he got in, but our 150-year-old building was still standing. When I went to visit him, the jailers in that terribly overcrowded place got to know me, and I, in visiting with him, wound up going places inside that jail that most people would never see. Where were you? When John heard in prison what the Messiah was doing. John, the one who had baptized Jesus. John, who leapt in his mother's womb when Mary, who carried Jesus within her, came to visit her cousin Elizabeth. John, who was eventually beheaded on the whim of a spoiled rich girl. John was in prison. Now, from my very brief and temporary sojourn in prison, for a prisoner to be very interested in the current events of the world outside those walls seems pretty unique. I mean, just surviving, just getting through the days, just dealing with the what is, seems more than enough when compared with considering the what might be's on the outside. There's great potential to focus only on oneself and survival and getting through the day until tomorrow comes. At least that's been my limited experience in the few hours I've spent inside the big house. When John heard in prison what the Messiah was doing, that must have been some powerful message, some tremendous force, some incredible experience that was happening out there. In our day, in our collective memory, somebody walking on the moon changed the world. Just think how limited our lives would be without Tang, the drink the astronauts drank. John was not in that relaxed, Zen-like state of being where he could free his mind to just kind of drift with the currents around him, allowing the possibilities to flow over him like the gentle waves of the sands of a tropical island. He was in prison. I don't know if that meant guard dogs and barbed wire, but it certainly meant limited freedom, a controlled environment, a space where someone else was clearly and absolutely in control. And yet, even there, even in that oppressive and repressive situation, John heard what the Messiah was doing. And not only did he hear, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, "Are you the one who is to come? Or are we to wait for another?" Far beyond his own situation, John was interested in how the world might turn, how things could be different, whether or not God in flesh now appearing was true. I read the daily news coming from that part of the world, and it seems little has changed. Those with power appear bent on keeping that power, and that's probably a natural response. Those without power feel so helpless that they appear ready to do almost anything to gain power, at least some power. For political and ideological reasons, the prisons are filled to overflowing. There's hatred and mistrust, a sense of hopelessness, a resignation to the perpetual conflict. This is the way it's been, and apparently the way it seems like it will always be. This is life, and the people work to make firing or dodging missiles a normal part of their everyday lives. To live in such an environment seems pretty much hopeless, at least looking at it from the outside. It's amazing